Right there, I saw a little.
He's battled giants, technicians, brawlers, and counterpunchers spanning 8 weight classes and 4 decades, taking on legends, champions, and fearless challengers with nothing to lose. Across 72 bouts, 72 nights of relentless combat, where destinies changed with every punch, only a select few ever forced Manny Pacquiao to pause, to rethink, to regroup, to admit that one was different. Not just difficult to defeat, but exhausting to face. Opponents who didn't just threaten the outcome, but disrupted his rhythm, unsettled his mind, and challenged the very identity of who he was in the ring. When your style thrives on relentless speed and aggression, the most dangerous adversary is the one who breaks your momentum, who makes you doubt your timing, your instincts, even your edge. These are the rare fighters who earned a place on Pacquiao's personal list, not through bravado or brute force alone, but through calculated resilience. No pride, no blame, just honest tribute, forged in the heat of war. They didn't just strike with power, they responded with intent. These are the battles Pacquiao himself names as the most punishing of his storied career, and once you know who tested him most, you'll never watch his highlight reel the same way again.
I don't understand that.
His father told him, don't do anything stupid. Please be cautious. He switched southpaw and got hit by a man.
When Manny Pacquiao speaks about boxing, he doesn't sound like a retired legend, reminiscing over past glories. He sounds like a perpetual student of the craft, someone who never stopped learning. To him, every opponent wasn't just a challenge. They were a chapter in his education. Some taught him timing, others demanded patience, and a few forced him to transform mid-fight or risk being left behind. And in rare moments of raw candor, Pacquiao let slip a truth seldom heard in a sport built on pride. Honesty. Because greatness isn't just defined by the titles you win, it's etched by the men who pushed you to your limits. The ones who drew blood, made you hesitate, or forced you to reach deeper than you ever thought possible. That's why this list matters. It isn't built on fanfare or pay-per-view numbers. It's not about hype, fame, or the spotlight. It's about the fighters who truly tested Pacquiao, who refused to back down, who broke his rhythm, and who made him fight for every single moment. And if you think this list is just highlight reel knockouts and lopsided wins, think again. Some of these opponents beat him, some exposed weaknesses, and still, Pacquiao credits them for making him better. Because what real fighters carry with them aren't the easy wins, it's the battles that nearly broke them, and somehow didn't dot it. Begins with the man who didn't just beat Pacquiao, he broke his momentum. In 2005, Manny was riding high, fast, ferocious, and coming off a string of explosive victories that had the world calling him boxing's future. Then came Erik Morales. No theatrics, no trash talk, just a clinical performance built on strategy and discipline. Morales didn't try to match Pacquiao's speed, he neutralized it. He didn't engage in chaos, he controlled the tempo. And over 12 grueling rounds, he gave Pacquiao something he hadn't felt in years: frustration. That loss hurt not because Manny was knocked out, but because he was outmaneuvered. Morales didn't just land punches, he planted doubt. He made Pacquiao question his timing, his movement, even his instincts. And after the fight, there were no excuses. Manny didn't blame his gloves, his training camp, or the gash above his eye. He took responsibility. He praised Morales' focus. He acknowledged he was beaten by a smarter fighter. And even after Pacquiao would go on to avenge the loss in their rematches, that first defeat never left him. Because it wasn't just a stumble, it was a wake-up call. A reminder that no matter how explosive you are, there's always someone who can force hesitation. For Manny, that man was Morales. But if Morales disrupted the streak, Juan Manuel Marquez was the one who never let Manny get comfortable. Their rivalry spanned for fights for unresolved chapters of a story written in grit and precision. Marquez wasn't just resilient, he was intellectually relentless. While others collapsed under Pacquiao's pace, Marquez stood firm, dissecting angles, countering with surgical accuracy. He didn't weather the storm, he timed it. And in doing so, turned every exchange into a chess match. Pacquiao has said it himself. Marquez was a nightmare not because he hit the hardest, but because he understood Manny's rhythm better than anyone. Every time Pacquiao thought he'd figured it out, Marquez adjusted. He reset. He recalculated. It was a rivalry forged, not in hatred, but in mutual trial. And in their fourth bout, the trial reached its brutal peak. One right hand, one perfect counter, one thunderous ending that silenced the crowd and left Pacquiao face down on the canvas. The world paused. The legend fell. Yet in that crushing moment, Pacquiao's respect for Marquez only deepened, because Marquez never blinked, never backed down, never gave him closure. Out of everyone Manny ever faced, it was Marquez who remained closest, not in style, but in shadow, always present, always ready, always forcing him to.
He can slow you down to his pace. There's no way in the world you're going to beat him. I don't get the fight.
Rounds.
He didn't just remember the punches, he remembered the silence between them. the pauses, the hesitation, that rare and unnerving feeling of being figured out in real time. As if Marquez could anticipate the punch before it even left his glove. It wasn't luck, it was homework. Precision born of relentless study. And then came Floyd Mayweather Jr., the biggest bout of Pacquiao's career, and perhaps the most exasperating night of it. It wasn't a slugfest. It wasn't a war. It was a puzzle. And for 12 rounds, Pacquiao chased an answer he couldn't find. He swung at air, landed just enough to stay dangerous, but never enough to take control. Mayweather didn't outslug him. He outmaneuvered him. He erased angles, smothered combinations, and transformed Manny's aggression into missed chances. That's what made it so difficult to accept. It wasn't a physical defeat, it was tactical. Pacquiao came into the fight confident, trained, and believing his speed and experience would break through. But Mayweather didn't fight to entertain, he fought to control. Every time Pacquiao advanced, Floyd made him hesitate. Reset, reach. After the fight, Pacquiao mentioned a shoulder injury, and the world debated whether it was an excuse. But the truth was harder to face. Even at full strength, Floyd Mayweather's style would have always been a nightmare. Pacquiao would later call him smart, not with admiration, but with the quiet frustration of a fighter who knows he couldn't crack the code. There was no hate, just futility. He couldn't touch him, and in a fight like that, every second drags you overthink, you lunge, you miss. Suddenly, it's not a contest, it's a masterclass, and you're the subject. For a man who built his legacy on explosive bursts and dramatic knockouts. Being silenced not by words, but by movement left a deeper mark than most punches ever could. Mayweather didn't beat Pacquiao with brute force. He beat him with distance, with rhythm, with discipline. And in Pacquiao's own view, that's exactly what made him one of the toughest opponents he ever faced.
He jabs. He doesn't jab as much as people think.
Then came Miguel Cotto, a fighter who didn't frustrate Pacquiao with tricks, feints, or footwork, but with pure, unrelenting force. This wasn't a chess match, it was a war, a test of attrition, of willpower, of who could absorb more punishment, and still press forward. And for the opening rounds of their 2009 clash, it wasn't clear who would break first. Cotto came in sharp, disciplined, and determined. He hammered Pacquiao's body with thudding shots, pushed him backward, and refused to let the fight spin out of control. For once, Pacquiao wasn't the one setting the tempo. He was being matched by a man who could weather the onslaught and respond in kind. Eventually, Manny took control. He found angles no one else could, exploited openings with blistering combinations, and began to dismantle Cotto with his signature speed and precision. But it didn't come easy. Cotto didn't fold. He stood his ground, absorbed everything thrown his way, and in doing so, demanded something extra from Pacquiao: more effort, more concentration, more heart. Even after securing a TKO victory, Pacquiao never minimized what Cotto brought to that ring. He called him one of the strongest opponents he'd ever faced, not just in terms of physical strength, but emotional resilience. Because Cotto didn't just come to win, he came to endure. He fought like a man defending more than a title, as if something personal, something deeper, was on the line. And that stayed with Pacquiao long after the bell, long after the belts. Because strength isn't always about who falls, it's about who refuses to.
Body shots absorbed nicely. Pacquiao.
It's a guy who has been shaken in fights. He has been knocked down, like by Ricardo. If the fight goes the distance, it'll be interesting to see how they scored that.
Then there was Antonio Margarito, a man who dwarfed Pacquiao in size and presence. At the weigh-in alone, it was clear this was no typical matchup. On fight night, Margarito stepped into the ring, nearly 17 pounds heavier, towering over Manny, with a granite jaw and a fearsome reputation for relentless aggression. But what truly made Margarito one of Pacquiao's toughest adversaries wasn't just his size. It was his unyielding will. No matter how many punches landed, how many sharp, punishing combinations Manny unleashed, Margarito simply refused to quit. Pacquiao fired everything he had. Speed, angles, relentless volume. He landed over 400 punches that night. Yet Margarito didn't break. His face was swollen, his eyes nearly shut, his orbital bone fractured. Still, he kept coming forward. He kept pressing, hunting a ghost he could never catch. For all of Manny's brilliance, the footwork, the precision, the dazzling offense, there were moments in the middle rounds when he glanced at Margarito as if asking, "Why won't you stay down?" Pacquiao later admitted that out of all his opponents, Margarito was the one he truly felt compassion for. Inside the ring, a warrior who simply refused to yield.
I think that one punch got Pacquiao's attention.
Oh, and that's a big left hand by Pacquiao.
And now Pacquiao fighting off the ropes and kind of getting things back to where they were.
Listen to the crowd as the bell sounds.
At the end of it all, Manny Pacquiao never measured his toughest opponents by belts, paydays, or public acclaim. Instead, he judged them by how profoundly they forced him to dig deep within himself. Morales challenged his intellect. Marquez disrupted his rhythm. Mayweather outsmarted his timing. Cotto tested his stamina, and Margarito pushed the limits of his resilience. Each of these warriors left an indelible mark on Pacquiao's legacy, just in the form of scars, but as crucial evolutions. They honed his instincts, strengthened his spirit, compelled him to question everything he thought he knew, and ultimately helped him grow beyond it. This is the part casual fans rarely witness. They see the knockouts, the lightning-fast combinations, the highlight reels, but they miss the unseen battles, the mental recalibrations after brutal nights, and the deep introspection that only comes when an opponent makes you feel truly mortal. Inside the ring, Pacquiao's most formidable foes were never simply those who landed the hardest punches. They were the ones who forced him to change, to improve, and who left behind a legacy far richer than any scorecard could capture. And in every post-fight interview, in every quiet moment, away from the spotlight, his humility shines through. He doesn't boast of dominance, he expresses gratitude for the resistance, knowing that by winning, he also survived the nights that nearly broke him, and he never forgot those who handed him those tests.
I won the fight, but I can say that that's easy. This fight is hard. And I want to thank everybody for the people who came here and watched.
When Manny Pacquiao names his toughest opponents, he's not simply handing out compliments, he's paying tribute to the battles that shaped him. These weren't just entries on a resume. They were warriors who stood unyielding before the storm. The ones who made him miss, who made him bleed, who forced him to question, even if just for a moment, whether the fight was slipping away. And in that fleeting second, Pacquiao discovered something victory alone could never teach. A clear understanding of his limits, his resolve, and the true meaning of greatness when everything seems to be unraveling. Greatness isn't measured by dominance, it's defined by resistance. Manny's story isn't one of effortless triumphs. It's a story of relentless adaptation, of being knocked down, doubted, and choosing to fight smarter, harder, and deeper. Morales made him reset. Marquez made him rethink. Mayweather made him reach. Cotto made him endure. Margarito made him feel. Each, in their own way, helped forge the most unpredictable and unforgettable legacy in boxing history. You don't become a fighter like Manny by avoiding tough nights, you become one by surviving them. And that's why these names come up time and again when he reflects. Because they didn't just challenge him, they revealed him, and the fighter we all remember was forged in those moments.